You are listening to Launchpad, a podcast produced by the Office of University Strategic Communications at the University of Texas at San Antonio. It is the beginning of a new era. Two top-tier research universities are joining forces as one, bringing the power of higher education and healthcare into one institution. A new university that will serve as a model of both access and excellence across South Texas and beyond. In this podcast, we speak with the leaders who will be guiding the third largest research university in Texas into this exciting future. Get informed and get inspired about San Antonio's new world-class university. Hello and welcome to the second episode of Launchpad. I'm your host, John Elizondo. We'll be joined a little later by UT San Antonio President Dr. Taylor Eimy and Senior Executive Vice President for Health Affairs and Health System, Dr. Francisco Cigarroa. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you listen to the first episode of this podcast to hear about the impact this integration will not only have on San Antonio, but all of Texas. These are some exciting times at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Integration is underway. There's a lot of potential for this university when it comes to enhancing research opportunities, advancing knowledge in healthcare, and building a strong workforce to serve Texas and beyond. This potential is driven by 40,000 students, 17,000 employees that span across 15 colleges and schools. Leading this new institution is University President Taylor Eimy, whose stewardship will help create more opportunities for students and build upon becoming one of the top universities in America for driving student economic mobility.
We had this aha moment with our integration steering committee that there is an equivalence actually here to this notion of making lives better. And if you think about, so much of our focus has been this idea that we provide access to education, and education is the most important investment that you can make in an individual and in their trajectory and in their family and in subsequent generations. The impact of a four-year degree or a graduate degree there's no question about the value of it. And the fact that we are recognized nationally for driving not only access, but return on investment and this notion of social mobility that's driven by return on investment and economic opportunity. We had this aha moment that our purpose of how we educate our students here is actually the educational equivalent of making lives better. And when we had that aha moment of realizing it, we realized that the two core missions of the two institutions were actually identical in spirit in terms of what was intended about why we are here and why we serve and who we serve. And so whether you're saving lives or whether you're by medical intervention and healthcare and health provision and public health focus, or whether you're saving lives by educational attainment, they both produce this outcome of making lives better.
Enhancing research is not just an opportunity, but a priority going forward for this university. With an annual research portfolio worth $486 million, healthcare research and clinical trials will thrive at the Mays Cancer Center, the Glenn Biggs Institute for Alzheimer's and Neurodegenerative Diseases, and the new Center for Brain Health, which will open in December of 2025. Dr. Francisco Cigarroa will serve as the Senior Executive Vice President for Health Affairs and believes UT San Antonio is well positioned to thrive.
I think research funding opportunities will be catalyzed. Obviously we're facing some headwinds right now because of, different reductions in funding streams, for research. But again, bringing people from different disciplines, faculty together is going to allow us to write the very best and the most competitive grants. And, the world's competitive. But trying to guess what? UTSA is a roadrunner, and we're going to win the races. So, I think, again, it's about, the caliber of faculty that we can recruit, synergies between different disciplines, allowing us to write great grant proposals, which will be competitive on their own merit, and we will get our fair share of funding. Also, we are focused on areas of research that the Texas legislature is very focused on. The Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas funds cancer research, only in Texas. So, we are well positioned to compete, with the most competitive universities around the world. And we're proud of it. And we're young relatively to these other universities that are over 100 years old. Remember, our first medical student just graduated in 1971, 72. I think the first UTSA student graduated probably 2 years later. And, we're competing with the very best.
If you look at the models for the very best public universities, public research universities in the United States, they all have a very large undergraduate academic component with a very strong research mission. And they also have massively large and impactful health enterprises that typically involve schools of medicine, schools of dentistry, schools of nursing, schools of public health, schools of allied health, with large clinical practices, one or more hospitals that they practice in, with huge clinical outreach and patient services and really providing health care for the communities that they're located in. And typically in those models, the research enterprise of a large academic medical center is typically much larger than the academic component of that model. But the very best institutions, the University of Washington, the University of Michigan, University of California, Los Angeles, UC San Diego, UNC Chapel Hill, they all have these behemoth academic medical centers and a very large academic institution with research happening in both places. And so the model of bringing our two institutions together really matches that construct. And if you think about it, here in Texas, in all honesty, the medical enterprise at UT Austin and the medical enterprise at College Station does not have the size and scale and scope of UT Health San Antonio. There's still great opportunities here in Texas around cancer research and around dementia research. That's about to be announced by the legislature. So we're sitting in a really important and sweet spot, and we're not going fast enough in terms of how we're integrating our two faculties about their interests in discovery and innovation and collaboration. So that's something that's really important to look forward to. And I would say that's one of the principal reasons why our Board of Regents wanted to get going on bringing the two institutions together.
As alluded by President Eimy, the blend of academics and research will foster opportunities of collaboration among faculty and students, providing new areas of study where the strengths, such as artificial intelligence in healthcare, will create innovative academic programs to serve future needs.
Fortunately for us, there have already been some vanguard activities that are reflective of the potential, and I would use this as a perfect example of that. Independent of merger, we had faculty from our School of Data Sciences who were very interested in AI, work with the School of Medicine or at the Long School of Medicine to create a brand new master's program where you would get a joint degree from the two institutions. You'd get a master's in AI, and you'd get an MD. You'd get your medical degree, and that joint program has taken off. And it's just one little example of the kinds of things that we're going to be able to create as we pull the two institutions together.
Great ideas often happen in a conversation at a coffee shop or at a cafeteria that suddenly leads, to a great hypothesis and therefore a great discovery. So an example of that, which actually happened here at the Health Science Center in San Antonio, is that there was a baby who was born with a syndrome called Jones syndrome. And Jones syndrome is a disease that affects the growth of the chest wall in an infant. And this disease uniformly was fatal because the chest wall would not grow and therefore the lungs would not expand and these little babies would asphyxiate. And, quite depressing for, the loved ones. And there was this wonderful pediatric surgeon who I knew, Dr. Melvin Smith, who actually was called to consult on this patient. And he was so moved by the family and the baby that he promised his family that he would figure this out. He knew that there was an engineer who was an orthopedic surgeon here, and his name was Dr. Robert Campbell. And so they met at the cafeteria at University Hospital one day, and they spoke about this. And that's where the idea of a titanium rib came out. And so the very first titanium rib that was used was on a little infant in the neonatal unit at University Health. And the baby survived and actually opened up a whole new world in how to treat chest wall deformities and actually also severe spinal deformities. And again, that was a physician who was an engineer and a physician who was a pediatric surgeon, two separate fields of expertise coming together, talking about a problem, and they go, this is how we're going to solve it. That's the power of this merger. More of these similar circumstances will happen.
All this work happening today at UT San Antonio will only lead to a prosperous future in the Texas workforce, building a pipeline of professionals to address employment needs across the state, from cybersecurity to healthcare. This will not only provide social mobility for students, but will have an impact on the San Antonio economy.
Well, we're going to be a huge contributor to the workforce. First in the community that we serve, which is San Antonio and South Texas. But when, companies want to come, into a city, and we're talking about, Fortune 500 companies, large companies, they want to find out do we have the university educational systems? Do we have the community college districts? Do we have four-year universities? Do we have, advanced universities that are Tier 1 research universities to basically create the pipeline that's required now for the future of work? And so in every metric that I see, this integration is going to develop new innovations that are translated to market. It's going to spin out new companies, as it already has in artificial intelligence. It's going to lead to drug development, which will bring pharma, into San Antonio. It will help, with engineers that can help our city and our community and our state with transportation needs. So it is, a very powerful. It's not a tool. It's a very powerful investment in the pipeline of our future workforce. And we need, all our academic partners, whether you're UTSA or whether you're a community college district or whether you are in K through 12, we all need to be working together to provide the best workforce, across the multiple sectors of the economy for San Antonio and for the state. And we're going to be leaders of that.
If you think about how we educate and how our graduates are entering the workforce here in San Antonio, here in Texas, at least 93% of our graduates ended up staying and joining the workforce here in Texas, which that's a principal purpose of who we are and what we do. But you have to actually step back from it and think about other aspects for public benefit that are maybe more for the collective good and not for individual benefit. You can't argue with individual benefit, but especially if you get better or you're educated, those are both powerful things. But we have an agency here in town and here in South Texas and here in Texas about really being a foundational institution here in our community. And there aren't many institutions that are the same size and scale and impact as us. And if you think about the real nature of merger and integration and impact, it has to go beyond the direct benefit to our individual community members and their families, as important as that is. But we have an absolute role about driving the development and growth and trajectory of our city and our region. We have a moral responsibility to contribute to that and lead that effort. We actually have a moral requirement to do this. And if we don't lean in at that level and that scale about working closely with everybody else in government, at the local level to the state level to the national level, if we aren't working with our civic organizations or the business community or our fellow education and healthcare providers here in town, we are losing the opportunity to have this impact.
From research to academics to developing a workforce suitable for Texas, the sky is the limit for the University of Texas at San Antonio. Now that you have heard about the vision for what this university can become, it's important to remember how this integration was made possible. President Taylor Eighmy reflects on this monumental moment as we embark on a new beginning.
We're very fortunate that we get to stand on the shoulders of giants that have come before us. So, my predecessors and really all of their efforts to create this institution, that was a powerful effort going forward. And then the same holds true for UT Health San Antonio. And there's someone who's not here today who, if he were alive and were observing this and watching this or even participating in this, he would have a very powerful and important voice. And I'm speaking about Dr. Bill Henrich, who is no longer with us and was a huge champion of his institution and a huge champion of this notion of making lives better. And, he wanted to see the hospital built and he wanted to see all this progress being made. And I think he would look down now and say, the path forward is bright and positive, and we would not be here today doing this if he hadn't led his institution for those 17 years, 15 or 17 years, it's a big number, and all the accomplishments that he and his colleagues realized. So his voice is missing right now, but his spirit and his focus and all of the effort that he put on the table with his team to bring his institution forward are making this possible today.
We appreciate Dr. Eighmy and Dr. Cigarroa for their time. This series continues with 3 more voices, leaders who will be instrumental in the success of research, academics, and workforce development. Hear what it takes to merge 2 Carnegie R1 research universities into one, and learn about the role UT San Antonio's research enterprise plays in addressing public health across South Texas. Join us for our next episode. This episode of Launchpad is brought to you by the Office of University Strategic Communications at the University of Texas at San Antonio. This podcast is available on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Stay up to date with the latest news about UT San Antonio by visiting UT San Antonio today.